two 85mm f1.4 lenses side by side. The photo on the left is taken with the SIRUI 85mm F1.4 Aurora that came out in November last year, but on the right we have the brand new, just released VILTROX 85mm F1.4 Pro. These two lenses are actually very different from build quality to performance, so let's take a look. So on the first glance, it's clear that VILTROX is bigger, chunkier boy, even though both of them are f1.4. It sits about 13mm taller than the SIRUI, and it's also quite a bit heavier, coming at just under 800 grams without the lens hood and caps, if my scale is right. But SIRUI comes in at the impressive 540 grams, and that's about 250 gram difference. That's a whole VILTROX 50mm 2.0 lens and a little bit more. VILTROX is also wider, front element is with a 77mm filter thread, while SIRUI has 67mm. Now, 2-3 years ago, I would say that VILTROX lens is on par in size and weight with other 85mm f1.4 lenses, such as the original Sony G Master, which is tiny bit shorter but weighs a little bit more. But in 2025, it is a little bit more than I expected. For example, Sony has released the GM2 in the meantime that weighs about 640 grams. So in fact, it's the SIRUI lens that is quite impressively small. Even Sigma's art lens is not as small, with 77mm filter thread and 625 gram weight. So kudos to SIRUI on this one. But I think to achieve this size and weight, SIRUI had to cut corners, and you can really tell that in the build quality. VILTROX lens just feels so much more premium, and honestly, it's probably impossible to show that in a video. You really gotta feel it, but the touch, the materials, the rings, everything feels so much better. But let's take feature by feature so you see what I'm talking about. Aperture ring, both of them have it, my favorite feature, and it can be clicked or declicked. Listen to how SIRUI sounds. And now the VILTROX. SIRUI is a lot more plasticky, also much easier to change the values, while VILTROX is a lot sturdier and precise, and resistance is just right. It is especially noticeable when switching into the declicked mode. SIRUI's ring moves around a little bit too easy. I can move it almost with one finger without any force, and it even has a 0.5 millimeter gap if I move it up and down. Do you see this? VILTROX, on the other hand, again, has that perfect resistance, which you have to try it out yourself to understand what I'm talking about. And obviously, not a slightest gap. Same thing with the focus ring. VILTROX's one just feels a little better on hand. The switches and buttons on both lenses are excellent. I love it how sturdy they are. Back of the lens, both have USB-C for firmware updates, and both have rubber gaskets for weather sealing. But VILTROX's gasket feels that it's twice the size and thickness of SIRUI's. In front, as I said, 67 versus 77mm filter thread, but VILTROX can focus tiny bit closer with 0.79 meters versus 0.85 on SIRUI. And lastly, purely subjectively, the design of VILTROX lens, I think, is just so much prettier. Small lettering, classy, timeless style, while SIRUI wanted to go a little bit bold with, these big numbers and letters. When it comes to image quality, it is almost impossible to tell them apart. Here's a side by side again. And when I punch into 200 or 300%, both feel equally sharp. In some settings, I feel like SIRUI might have an edge and be a tiny bit sharper, but then look here on the lashes, seems like VILTROX is a little bit sharper, right? In fact, honestly, it doesn't really matter which one is tiny bit sharper, because I want to emphasize that both of the lenses are very sharp. I mean, let me show you more examples. Here is a photo that I took with SIRUI. Take a look at Luana's hair. It's just amazing. And VILTROX here with Natalie, just very nice and sharp. Now, when it comes to other stuff like lens flares, I love shooting backlit portraits, and I had a blast doing that here with Luana. The light was just so beautiful, and even though in some photos, as expected, you can see some flares, they definitely just add to the mood and are not distracting at all. Same with SIRUI, great to shoot backlit, no issues at all, just beautiful results. Where I can take a point off from both of the lenses is their chromatic aberration control. Now please note, in normal shooting scenarios you will not easily see it, but if you really punch into 200%, there are some, you know, tiny flaws where you can find it. So for example, in this drone photo, as you can see, here is a green edge in this one, and then I found one with the purple one here. And it also mostly appears in very high contrast scenes, but interestingly, when I stepped down to like f3.5, I couldn't find any fringing. And you know, SIRUI had the same story. You can see on Luana's hand, on one side of the hand it's this green little line, and on the other one it has that purple. Again, in high contrast shooting and only visible when really punching in. You won't notice it when zooming out, and both of these lenses perform 100 times better than the good old Sony 85mm F1.8 FE lens, which is notoriously bad when it comes to chromatic aberration. Well, at least my copy was horrible. Now, this is a deal breaker for me. So SIRUI, just like Meike, uses the STM focus motor, and it is not that good. It's just facts, and you can see it in these examples where I tested the SIRUI. Clearly the lens cannot keep up with the model that is walking fast towards the camera, and once it loses the track, it's gone. But it's not all that bad. If you shoot in like normal, casual scenario, it will perform fine. VILTROX, on the other hand, uses the VCM motor, and I have a suspicion it's why the lens is a little bit on the bigger side. Nevertheless, I tested autofocus in all possible scenarios, both in videos and photos, and honestly it performs so well. In photos, the lens was able to quickly acquire the eye autofocus, and it remained sticky. Also, when reviewing the photos, I confirmed that it had nice focus on the eye. In video mode, I was shooting on A7 IV and at 4K 60, so bear in mind that the shot is cropped in, because that's how Sony made the A7 IV. Thank you, Sony. And as you see also here, the autofocus is perfect, sticking with the model's eye throughout her movements. One note though, when the camera is off or the lens is detached, the focus motors move within the lens, and you will hear a clunking sound like this. VILTROX assured me that's totally fine. When you turn the camera on, the focus motors engage, and then there won't be any sound. Speaking of sound, obviously the focus motors are mad silent, so you won't hear them working at all. And for full transparency, both of these lenses are sent to me by the corresponding brands, but they didn't pay me or ask me to do the video, nor they see it before it's released. However, this video does have a sponsor, and it's Axoon. You know, I extensively use and truly love their devices, especially the CMO 4K or the Nano that allows me to record the screen to do this kind of work of EVF recording. I know there might be some Sony apps, but honestly most of them work so badly that I don't bother to try them even. Workflow with Axoon products is so smooth and feels premium, plus I get the monitor features, so check them out if you haven't already. SIRUI is way more compact, and $499 USD for 85mm F1.4 is an amazing deal. However, the outdated STM focus motor and grade lower build quality is noticeable. On the other hand, if you are on a tight budget, I honestly think it's a better deal than getting the Sony's 1.8 85mm. You have way more features on the lens, amazing sharpness, and it's cheaper. VILTROX, it's bigger and heavier, but it truly is 2 classes higher when it comes to build quality. Bold claim, but externally it feels as good as Sony's GM. The autofocus is amazing. It feels amazing to use it, especially for portrait photography and videography. And of course, the sharpness, the subject separation, the bokeh, everything is on point. Best part, this lens will cost under 600 USD, and you can get an extra 5% discount if you use my code below. That's just a tiny bit more than SIRUI's lens, so I think this lens probably gets the most performance per dollar. Let me know what you think of these lenses, and if anyone has the new Sigma 85, let me know how would it stack up against the VILTROX, because I feel like VILTROX is slowly trying to rise to Sigma's level with these pro and lab lenses. Alright guys, enough for today. See you in the next one. Keep on creating. Ata.